That's a fish. A good one. Finally a good one. Hi y'all, Tab here with Real Michigan Anglers, and in this video we're going to do a review for the NTX 1383 Spiral Wrapped Baitcaster from NTX. This particular rod is an 11-foot 6-inch rod with moderate fast action, and it's rated for a 1/4 ounce to 3/4 ounce lures. So as you can see, this is a spiral wrapped baitcaster. So with the baitcaster, your reel spools off the top instead of off the bottom. So generally you need your first guide on top to compensate for that. So a traditional baitcaster rod, all the guides sit on top and you fight the fish and cast your lures and whatnot with the blank on the bottom and the guides pointing up, as where most other types of fishing reels it's the other way around. So the solve for that is to spiral them. So it actually spirals within the first 4, and then from there it's a straight shot down the rest of the rod. So that makes it so that it puts the pressure right on the eyelet the way it's supposed to on the other end, while keeping this end oriented where it needs to be to run a baitcaster. So this is a pretty slick setup if you're running a baitcaster for float fishing. This thing's easy to cast. It's got enough backbone for fighting fish, so if you need to pull fish off log jams, this rod can do that. But there's plenty of action in the tip, moderate fast action, so you can see there's a lot of bend there when a fish is fighting. This rod is always picking up the slack for you as the fish is head shaking or going on runs or doing any of the other crazy things a fish will do while you're fighting it. So lots of shock absorption up top, and that's because of that moderate fast action. Since this is rated for 6 to 12 pound line, that means that you can run as heavy as 12 pound for your main line and leader, and as light as 6. If you run lighter than 6, this rod is going to be too stiff to keep your line from breaking when a fish really starts going to town. And adversely, if you put 15 pound main line and a 15 pound leader on, then when you're fighting fish, you're running the risk of breaking the rod if you have to horse that fish with heavy line on. So it's rated for 6 to 12, which is pretty standard for your typical steelhead rod. This is what I would consider middle of the line. It's not a light rod, it's not a super heavy rod for salmon or the type of rod you would use to fish steelhead in creeks that are full of log jams where you need to really get them out of those log jams or you're going to lose them every time. So this is a good middle of the road option for steelhead fishing for a steelhead fishing rod. So with float fishing rods, and most steelhead rods in general, you want lots of play. That's important. That helps with casting. It makes casting easier because you get more of a whip, but it makes fighting fish easier also. Now, when there's no pressure on it, this thing stays pretty stiff. It's not super noodly, so when you cast out, it's easy to mend because you can high stick and keep your line all up off the water while your float goes down. But then when you need to set the hook on the fish, it's a little bit stiff, a little bit of backbone, and that's going to make it so that you get good hook sets despite the moderate fast action. That's going to be your shock absorption for the fish. So if you're in the market for a steelhead float fishing rod somewhere in the 11.5 foot range, this is a really good option. This is pretty budget friendly for what it is. It's a very high quality rod for under $200. I've been using this one for maybe a little over 2 years now. I've caught a lot of fish on this. I've used it for steelhead, I've used it for pike, I've used it for catfish, I've used it for salmon. I've used it for a lot of things, mostly steelhead. But I've caught trophy brown trout on this, I've caught huge king salmon on this, I've caught brute steelhead on this. It holds up, it works good in strong current, fast water, and it serves me well on creeks as well. So like I said, this is a good kind of middle of the road, all-purpose float fishing rod. So budget friendly, works in almost any scenario. You can't go wrong with that. So if you're looking for your first baitcaster or your first float rod in general, this is a great option. Now if you need a heavier rod or a lighter action rod for various reasons, then this may not be exactly the rod for you. So comparing this to my 13-foot Midnight Series center pin rod, this rod seems very stiff at first glance. So when I first started fishing this rod, I thought, oh man, it's a little stiff, I don't know if I like that. But once I got into a few fish on it, I was convinced that it was going to be just fine, and it's slowly grown to be my favorite rod, actually. So this is what I use for float fishing most of the time now. I still like to use the center pin a lot, but sometimes the longer action or the lack of backbone, because it's a little lighter rated rod, it's not as stiff down here, makes it a little harder to force a fish and keep them off log jams and things like that. So for most of my general purpose steelhead fishing, this rod serves me perfectly, and I have no complaints. It's very light. The length of the handle is perfect, so you can tuck that in your armpit or up against your rib here like I do when I'm fighting a fish. You can even grip it up high if you want to while you're fighting a fish. I love that feeling, that's real nice. Gives you lots of leverage without wearing your arm out. But also for casting, you kind of just do a lot of this, kind of whipping it with the whole thing tucked up under the armpit, and you get good leverage for casting that way as well, especially in spots like this where it's kind of tight corners. You got trees all around and whatnot, things you're trying to avoid. You can kind of just give this the twist, and that's a pretty effortless cast. Not that this is a big river where casting is super hard, but on the big rivers too, that gives me enough to where I can really whip it out there and give it some good distance. Now also, this rod is rated for, what did I say, up to 3/4 ounce. So I'm typically using like a 1/2 ounce, sometimes a little more. So when you need to do those long casts, you can go up to 3/4 ounce weight and cast that without having any issues. So, like I said, good for small water and big water. So I have all sorts of footage of me catching fish on this rod. I'm going to include a bunch of that in the video so that you can watch it in action and see it do its magic. So enjoy the footage and stay tuned for more steelhead fishing videos from Real Michigan Anglers. Thanks.
All right. This one is a jumper. Go ahead and wear yourself out. Switch the old slime time bead. Only took a couple drifts. She's a jumpy girl. that time, because I'm not going to lose this one. Lost a lot of fish yesterday and one so far today. Get in there, yeah. Yeah. Whew. Nice little jumpy girl. There she is, nice little one. Just a little one, but real spunky. Good fighter. That's a fish.
Net. Net. Just keep that fish in there. That fish is going crazy in the net. It's a double header.
Oh, that looks like a nice fish.
Super. Super. Doubles, baby! Let's go, Ted! Let's go, baby!
Wow. I saw it.
Chomped. You're gonna need pliers for that one. That one's square in the corner of the mouth.
Get the pliers. Oh, big dunk. Wowzer. That was a crazy dunk. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did.
What was that? Is that a steelhead?
Steelhead,
I think it is. My gosh. I think it's a steelhead. I should have changed my leader. That bobber dunk was crazy and that jump was crazy. That was very not pikey. It's a pike. Yeah. That's a crazy aggressive pike. Yeah. Totally different. We were just talking about pike jumps. That was a really good pike jump. Oh! He's got a lamprey on him. Yeah.
That's a good fish, dude.
Whew.
Quite the bobber down.
Yeah. Yeah, that was crazy. There's a fish. Fish? Oh. Wow. This is a big one. hand's cramping up. Bad timing, hand. I'm gonna try to keep this fish out of the current as much as I can, because I can tell it's big, and it's probably gonna be a problem if it gets downriver on me. Wow. Yikes. Did I catch the same one again? I totally just caught the same fish twice in a row. Look at this. That's the same fish. Off in the net too, barely hooked. Just caught this fish for the second time in the last couple minutes. She came in a lot easier the first time. Yeah. Did we bring a net down?
No, I didn't.
Does anybody have one? It looks like a coho. Anybody got a net? Nobody's got a net?
No, we got it. I just accidentally left it in the car, but still have a sleep.
Thank you.
That's a net fee.
Yeah, I can handle that. It's worth it. I think it's a coho, honestly.
No, it's a king.
Yeah, just a small one.
Oh wow. Super fresh.
A shiny one though.
King, though.
Yay!
Just watch your fingers. Oh, it's out already.
Yeah,
So
give
just
me-